Hello, and welcome back to Dr. Hollowed. These aren't ghost stories. These are moments people experienced that they still can't rationalize. Let's get into it.
I'm autistic, and when I was about 9 years old, I was just starting to get bullied. It was summer, and my diabetic aunt was starting to become too ill to stay at home by herself. She was going blind and had a pacemaker, so my grandma and I were charged with babysitting her. I spent all summer doing that every day. She was pretty cool, and we got real close, mostly because my friends were shit. She was always there to listen. Around Thanksgiving she was hospitalized. She was in the ICU, intubated with kidney failure. I honestly thought she was coming home, though. We visited her often, and on Thanksgiving we brought her a plate of food. I think I went along, but I have no memory of it. That night I woke up screaming that she died. I had a vivid dream that she was in the hospital bed, she flatlined, and I floated up to the ceiling with her, looking down on my uncle, who was at her bedside. She was covered in rainbows, had rainbow wings, and wore a dress with little white daisies on it. My mom told me I just had a bad dream and to go back to sleep. My aunt was fine. It was 4 a.m. I woke up at my usual time to a phone call. My aunt died at 4 a.m. She was buried in a nightgown with little white daisies on it. The best I can figure out is that it's all a coincidence, or she died in front of me, and I repressed the memory. I did regress and ended up carrying around a stuffed animal she bought me all the time. I ended up refusing to go to school as well. I was very psychologically impacted by this and for 3 or 4 years became very religious. Back in '93, when I was in my teens, I was sick with the flu one night. I insisted mom go to this concert with her friends. She rarely went out, and this was her annual social activity, planned months in advance. I was old enough to take my medicine and go to sleep all by myself. It was just a flu. I suddenly woke up screaming at 3:02 a.m. she wasn't home, which is downright impossible with me sick and alone. Our entire family was the two of us. I was kind of her entire world, and she was mine. I couldn't go back to sleep and sat waiting for the call. Around 6 o'clock the phone rang. It was one of her friends attending the concert. I asked if mom was dead and then if she would die and hung up after that. Later on, I learned they'd been in a big car crash, exactly at 3:02. 1 dead, 2 in a coma, and mom was hospitalized with 12 broken ribs. I just felt that. What woke me up was chest pain and mom's voice, not my own scream. I still do not believe in anything supernatural. This wasn't a miracle or anything. Maybe some level of leftover connection due to sharing everything in the same body for 40 weeks. When I first met my ex-husband, he lived in this oldish house, 1970s, deep in the county, like 30 minutes from a functional town area. I had a borzoi at the time, and he'd always aggressively bark in one particular area of the yard, right around the right front end of the house. That itself was pretty unnerving because borzoi in general don't bark, and I'd only heard him bark 3 or 4 times prior to that. There was always a noise in the house that sounded like keys jingling or a dog's collar when they shake, but never in the same room. Sometimes it'd be across the house, sometimes it'd be in the same room as me. And it wasn't my dog because sometimes he'd be in the room with me, and it would intrigue him too. One night my ex-husband went outside to get something, and he heard a noise that he described as a garden hose set to shower aimed at the ground in the area my dog was always barking. He went to see what it was, and there was nothing, but the sound was clear as day, as if there was literally someone watering the grass right in front of him. Then the noise started moving. It started tracing the perimeter of the house, and he followed it until it got halfway around the house. Then it suddenly took off very fast towards the woods at the back of the property. Maybe a month later, I was lying in bed, and my dog walked into the room. His gaze shifts from me to the area between the bed and the nightstand, and his posture gets defensive. Head forward, lips tight, stiff as a board, etc. I look where he's looking, and I see nothing. Then he starts creeping forward and growling, eyes wild like he's about to fight something. Again, I really did not like that because borzois are very cat-like. The only time they'd ever turn aggressive is if they're personally threatened or spooked. Then he springs forward and starts snapping at the air while growling, like he's trying to grab an invisible person. Another couple of months go by, and my ex and I are lying in bed. The room is dark, and he's sound asleep. Suddenly he jolts awake, making panic noises and flailing around like he's trying to fling something off of him. I ask if he's okay, and there's no answer. He's just breathing heavily and looking around for something. I ask what's going on, and he still doesn't respond, but now I notice he's staring at something just off the edge of the bed beside him. I follow where he's looking, and right in the corner where the nightstand meets his side of the bed, there's a whole-ass human face. At first I thought my ex had frozen up like that because it was a home invasion and he had a weapon pushed onto him or something, but then I realized the face wasn't real? I don't know how to describe it. Like I could see it, but it was like looking at your face in the reflection of your phone screen. There wasn't really much color to it, and there was something off about the 3D-ness and opacity of it. Also, there was no body or neck, it was literally just a head and face positioned as if someone invisible sans their head was knelt beside the bed watching us. I just stared at this thing in silent shock over my ex's shoulder for probably 30 seconds, I was too scared to even blink. Eventually I flung the blanket over my head, curled into a ball, and retreated to the corner of the bed furthest from the face. My ex realized then that I'd seen it too and bolted up to get the light, but it vanished with the dark. It's been nearly a decade, but I can still remember it so vividly that I could 110% pick him out of a crowd. He was maybe 45-ish with long, dark, straight hair that was kind of messy and had a wide bandana thing around his forehead. He looked some sort of Native American. He had a long, skinny face with prominent cheekbones, no facial hair, and almond-shaped dark eyes. My grandmother was my adoptive mother. My biological one didn't care that much about me, so my grandma took me in and raised me. We went through some harsh times and some good times, but in general it was nice. Back during the COVID pandemic, I was not talking to her that much. She fought with my wife, and I told her that while I would not pick a side, I would also not force anything, so I went on caring about my life. Eventually, I got the notice that she had contracted the damn virus, thanks to her sons, and since she was a smoker during her entire life, it could be bad. Long story short, she eventually died, and I wasn't able to contact or see her since the pandemic was ongoing, and I had a small child and didn't want to risk it. So my adoptive mother died without me talking to her, and I got the news as it being a somewhat good thing, as she was also very religious and constantly wanted to meet with her God. But one night, I had a dream. In that dream, I was sitting at my old home, and she was with me, with the same clothes that she used to wear almost every day. I could feel the old woman right near me, and I saw that she was at peace, but I went ballistic. Immediately started talking and going crazy about how I wasn't able to see her one last time and that I couldn't thank her enough for taking care of me and everything else, all the while crying rivers of tears. But then she held her hand, and I shut up. She said this, and I remember the speech. I was permitted to say 3 things. Take care of your wife, you will have great things coming to you in the near future, and, I died knowing how much you loved me. The dream abruptly ended, and I woke up. Cue screaming and crying and telling everything to my wife, who is very spiritual, while I am more rational. She just listened and understood and said nothing else. 1 month later I had a promotion where my salary tripled. My wife had some health issues where I had to take heavy care of her, but she survived, and I discovered through my uncle that the last thing that my grandma said was that she knew that she loved me and wanted to get out of the hospital to visit me, and he didn't know about the dream and still does not. Powerful stuff. I have never dreamed about my grandma since then.
That's not a ghost story, that's a connection story. And those are the ones that are harder to explain. Maybe it's grief, maybe it's connection. Either way, it stays with you.
I was on a group trip in Scotland many years ago. One of the planned activities was a hike to a huge sea cave and an overnight stay there. The tide, when it came in, covered the entrance to the cave, so we were effectively stuck in there all night. The hike to the cave was treacherous and very scary. At one point, the cliffside path was so narrow that we had to face the cliff and walk sideways, and most sobering of all was the fact that we saw sheep bones down at the bottom. I mean, if cliff-bred sheep couldn't handle this path, what chance did we have? Also, just before the cave, we had to scramble over Volkswagen beetle-sized boulders that were covered in slimy, slippery algae. So, after a stressful and dangerous hike, we got to the cave, and I was just done. Everyone else was cheerful, exploring, singing, and starting a small fire. As large as the cave was, more than a tiny fire would have choked us all out from smoke. I crawled into my sleeping bag and tried to calm my frazzled nerves. At one point the group started chanting some old Gaelic, taught by the group leader. I started to have, for lack of a better word, a vision. Even though I knew I was in a sleeping bag, I could sense myself inside a bowl that had been split open. Kind of like Luke Skywalker inside the Tauntaun. I felt that there were many other people around me, but not the people on the actual trip and in the actual cave. After a time, the people I was seeing proclaimed that I was to tell them the name of the new chieftain. I was a bit puzzled, but after we returned to the hotel the next day, the group leader asked us for our reflections of the experience. When I told her what I experienced, she looked a bit shocked and proceeded to explain to the group that the cave we were in had been used in ancient times for a ritual called the Tar Fesh, or Bull Festival. In it, The local shaman would enter into the skin of a sacrificed bull in order to get guidance from the spirits regarding the village's next chieftain. I mean, knock me over with a feather after hearing that. I was much younger then and hadn't done a lot of reading about the places we were visiting, and I definitely did not have any prior knowledge of this arcane ritual. Pretty mind-blowing, and definitely the most blatantly supernatural thing to happen to me. I've had many supernatural experiences, but my favorite is about one of my tattoos. My grandfather was a larger-than-life person. He was the family storyteller, a baker, a folk artist, and a fisherman. He'd lived a very full life, coming from the gutters to have a 52-year marriage, 5 kids, and a dozen grandkids. When his kidneys failed and we knew he wouldn't be around much longer, we all stopped day-to-day life and stayed by him. We wanted there to be just a few more stories. When he passed, we were all devastated. I read at his funeral. He was interred with military honors, as he'd been in the Navy during the Korean War. A few weeks after his funeral, I had a dream. My grandfather had a tattoo of a sea dog, and in the dream, he talked to me about getting myself another tattoo. I had one already. In my dream, he took me to a tattoo shop and told the tattooist, "I'll do it." We had a beautiful conversation while he tattooed me on my right wrist. I woke up with tears flowing. I saved up some money, and when I was able, I got that tattoo I dreamed of. My original artist canceled on me, and the one who was available shared the exact same initials as my grandfather. He was able to match my dream exactly as I described it. It was my birthday weekend and felt like a final gift from him. Afterwards I called my younger cousin and told her, I got a tattoo for, special grandpa name. And I told her about my dream. She gasped and said, "You had a dream too?" And proceeded to tell me about her own dream where our grandfather tattooed something very similar on her right shoulder blade. She then told me her eldest brother had a dream too. We had all gotten the tattoos that weekend without knowing about each other's dreams. All the tattoos have naval themes, and each has a special uniqueness to the grandchild it's on. I know he's always hanging out, watching over us. I miss him every single day. I have 3, all equally odd. Nightmares were never exactly rare for me growing up, but once when I was in high school I had an intense dream that I killed a woman in a very specific way. I woke up, laughing, which was horrifying in its own right, at a little after 3 a.m. and stayed up, so freaked out that I didn't even want to move, until my mother woke up. It was so bad that I ended up skipping school, which wasn't exactly something I did, least of all over dreams. Later that day, I was informed that classes were released early because a body had been found on school grounds. The woman had been killed the previous night, around 3 a.m., in a way that was similar to the way in which I had killed the woman in my dream. My friends and I were hanging out before classes in that same school, and I saw a figure, a man in an old-timey suit, walking on the ceiling. Naturally I did a double take, and, of course, there was nobody putting on the Ritz on the cafeteria ceiling, but as I was looking back down, I realized that one of my friends had also looked at the ceiling. The bell rang at that moment, but I messaged the guy later asking if he saw something weird. I asked him what he saw, without telling him what I had seen, because I didn't trust him to not lie to impress me, and he told me that he saw a guy in an old-fashioned suit walking on the ceiling. A few summers back I had to use my neighbor's bathroom because my toilet was broken and the repairman wasn't able to fix it for a week. We lived near enough to each other that it wasn't much of an inconvenience, but it was still a bit of a walk. The area was also surrounded by dense Appalachian forests. One night, around 4 or so, I had to use my neighbor's restroom, and as I was walking back to my house, I heard, coming from a specific spot just past the tree line, what sounded like a record player crackling and then a woman's staticky voice saying, "Hello?" Even as a small child, I was a bit of a skeptical asshat about my grandparents' Appalachian superstitions growing up, but in that moment, I did not look toward the woods, I did not respond, and I did not run, just like Grandma always told me to do. I have a few, but I am a huge skeptic, so I'm telling it from the perspective of everyone else in my life. The biggest one was my old house before we sold it. The place was massive, and you always felt uncomfortable being downstairs when the sun was down. We had 2 glass doors you could lock when you reached the 2nd level, and every night my mother would lock those doors. My room overlooked the back garden. Sometimes you would wake up and look into the garden, and it looked like there was an old man glowing in all white with a big beard walking through the garden. We had rooms for the people who worked in the house in the backyard, and they would say they saw stuff at night, so my mother had them come sleep upstairs full time eventually. The house had high walls with barbed wire and glass, so it wasn't like someone could just stroll in easily. One day my nan, who was not an agile woman, ran upstairs screaming. We were using the 2 bedrooms downstairs for storage, storing a lot of our old things. She heard something coming from one of the rooms, and when she looked inside, She said there was a small child playing with one of our big toy trucks from childhood on the floor, and when he saw her, he vanished. She was hysterical. Those boxes should have been sealed, so I went down to look, and sure enough, one of the old toy boxes was opened, and one of our old toy trucks was on the floor. But that's not the strangest part. We sold the house about 10 years back, and because it was so massive, the new owner tore it down and built 2 new properties on it. We moved into our family estate that was 5 minutes away. During the pandemic I was stuck back home, so the following happened about 5 to 6 years after we sold the house. I had some packages coming in, so I would go down to the post office to collect them. One time I was down there, I noticed a package addressed to my cousin. My paternal uncle was our neighbor, though we never spoke to the man, and I mentioned to the postman that that's my cousin and we used to live in the big house next door. He and some of the other people working there just looked at each other and said, "You lived in the haunted house?" And I said, "What do you mean?" He said the woman who lives in one of the new houses they built claims she sees an old man with a beard dressed in white walking in the garden with a young boy at night. That's just one of them. I've had a lot of really strange things happen over the course of my life. One of my therapists found it very strange I didn't believe in ghosts based on everything I told them. Hell, my partner is spiritual, and she feels the same every time I tell her one of my ghost stories. She says she doesn't understand why I keep saying there must be a rational explanation when my entire life has been surrounded by haunting, strange events and dreams that came true. I slipped into my happy place so hard that it felt like I fell into another dimension. My happy place was my grandparents' home when I was a child. One minute I was helping my fiancé clean the room, and the next minute I was home. My fiancé was gone, as well as the apartment. I was standing outside of my childhood bedroom, soaking up the morning sunlight down the hall. Plates and pans clinked in the kitchen because Grandma was cooking breakfast. I went into the living room, and the floorboards creaked loudly like they always did. Grandma was really in the kitchen with her little slippers on, making scrambled eggs and pancakes. Grandpa was there too, sitting in his favorite recliner and reading a book. He had his dorky glasses on. The news was playing quietly on the TV. Neither of them noticed me. Everything felt so real, familiar, and comforting. It was like I was a kid again, getting ready to watch TV with Grandpa while we waited for my sister to wake up. Then it was gone. It was over far too soon. I felt disoriented and was quiet afterwards. I was upset. I didn't want to leave. At the time when it happened, both my grandparents were alive, so it wasn't a sign of anything. I've never experienced it so vividly again, though, but I wish I could. Especially after my grandma passed away last year. All I want is to go back and enjoy one more breakfast. I'd give up anything to have that chance. Not a hunter, but growing up in I was the minority. Growing up in the woods, I was connected with the earth and nature, animals, etc. I knew from a very young age I was not alone in the woods. Having free rein at 8 years old, I explored my world and was not afraid of it. It was not uncommon to cross paths with deer, bear, coyotes, wolves, or even a mountain lion once. Usually by myself on my bike or cross-country skis, a bear or deer or coyote would be in the trail. I would stop and watch very quietly and just wait until they made their way. More than a handful of times we would just lock eye contact and just be there in the woods together. Still to this day one of my favorite things. Fast forward to my late 20s, my future wife and I were living on 12 acres of beautiful forest with an open field. And gave my wife's old friend permission to hunt the land. His new wife was pregnant and huge. He was hunting a deer to feed his family. His whole philosophy was to have the most powerful, accurate rifle to have the cleanest, most humane shot possible. He invited me to join him on his hunt. I had never hunted but thought if I ever needed to feed my family, it would be good to learn how to gut and clean it. So I agreed, and we were out hiking to a good spot before dawn. I just let my friend do his thing, and I followed silently back about 5 yards. He found his spot on a tree stump and told me to stay behind him and let him know if I saw anything, that this could take all day. So I stood back about 10 yards. Closed my eyes, and in my mind's eye, I connected with the land and called out and invited the deer who had been born to feed my friend and his new wife and soon-to-be baby. Immediately in my mind's eye there was this deer so real and vivid and still just standing in front of me in my mind's eye. Like the many times since childhood I communed with this deer. I thanked it for its giving of its life for my friend, for its energy and sustenance that would feed their little baby and help it grow. The most honor and respect for the life that was offered. It was intensely real. When I opened my eyes, the deer from my mind was standing 10 yards in front of me, looking me in the eyes. I whispered, "PSSSSTTT, there's a deer over here." He turned around on his stump. Took aim and shot one clean through the heart. He said that was the easiest hunt he'd ever had. We'd been there maybe 10 minutes. It was one of the most beautiful commune with nature experiences I've ever had.
I still don't know if I believe in any of this, but coincidence only explains so much.